What's up, YouTube? Well, told you guys I would keep you updated on the wagon, little stuff I did to it and everything, how fast it would go, I don't know if I said it in past videos. I was going to try to make it go 15s, but the car was in the 16s. Slow. You can notice I said was, because we finally got it to go 1598 at 86 mile an hour. So I wrote everything down, a piece of cardboard, show you guys where we started, and then compare its two fastest passes. Flip this around. Alright, so down in this bottom left-hand corner, we got a 1681 at 83 mile an hour with a 2.69 60 foot. Now that was when I bought the car. Alright, so that pass was when I first got it, and before I did anything to it really, except for take the air cleaner off of it. Then we got this 1610 pass. That was after I did timing adjustment. So, put timing in it. Pretty much it. That was the 1610. And then our fast pass was a 1598. You can see the 60 foot here. It's a little bit slower, but pretty, consistent. 244, 245. But there's a pretty big difference between these two passes. And you can see it's got a little bit more mile an hour. Now the difference between those passes, two things. I put a 750 carburetor on it, and I put a 4-hole spacer. It had an open spacer on it prior. And then it's got a taller tire. I went from a 27-inch tire to a 28. Now, I didn't do the tire size on purpose, just what came on my wheels. When I put the Warrior wheels on it came with 275/60 BF Goodrich drag radials. So it's a taller tire. The 750 I threw on it because I had it sitting here. Wanted to see if it would work because it's been sitting for a while. It hasn't been used in probably a year or two. It's been sitting outside on the car. So I wanted just to see if it would even work. So I threw that on. And at first it didn't want to work, but it ended up working. So tinkered with it a little bit, adjusting the idle mixture screws. Got it to run where idle's good and the fuel transition's decent. Haven't played with jetting or anything yet. Haven't even pulled the spark plugs out of it. But it thing lit the tires off of it after putting that carburetor on. So it was a pretty big difference as far as torque goes, which is really, it shouldn't be more torquey with that carburetor. Going from a 600 to a 750, it's a lot of CFM for a 302, especially when it's got like a 400 and something lift cam. I don't even think they're 440 lift in those motors. So, I mean, it made a pretty big difference. I think that's mainly because of the 4-hole spacer that I also put on it. So my theory behind using the 750 and the 4-hole, you got a pretty big carburetor. 750 CFMs of air flowing through it. People say, oh, the motor's going to use what it wants to use, da-da-da-da-da, all that. It's drawing through the carburetor. So if the motor doesn't want a 750 CFM carburetor on it, the airspeed is going to suck. because it's a big carburetor for a little engine, especially that's done at 6,000 RPMs. It's a lot of carburetor for an engine that only revs 6,000 RPMs to try to use. So I put the 4-hole on top of the 4-hole intake, because the stock cast iron intake manifold 4-barrel, in my mind, that's going to give the carburetor airspeed. Instead of using a plenum volume, I'm using the carburetor to draw as much air in through that 4-hole spacer and then the 4-hole intake. So as it's pulling the air in through the carburetor, it's trying to suck it quickly because it has no plenum volume, but it has small little holes in the intake to make airspeed. So essentially my carburetor, that 750, is my plenum volume, so to speak. And you might have a technical guy get on here and yap off at the mouth about how that's false and bull crap, whatever the case may be, but that's my theory behind it. Now I'm sticking to it. Unless somebody shows me on a flow bench, literally, where I can see the air being drawn through the carburetor with that same setup and proven wrong. Now, I believe that's why it has a little bit of torque now. Before the thing would mosey on its way, the back barrels would open, and then it would start to pull. Where now it's snapping that carburetor open, and it's able to get going with that little 4-hole spacer on it. Might try open spacer, might throw the old one back on it just to see what it does. But I think that 4-hole is probably a better bet. It might gain some mile an hour if it does help it with the open, but I can't even see that because I think it's just going to be sluggish off the start, unless that intake is just that restrictive where it needs more air. I do have a 600 double pumper sitting here off the 55 Chevy. Might try that as well just to see what it does. I got my goal though. On a 28-inch tire, I hit the goal I wanted, which was to go 15. Now it might have just dipped 1598. You know, it's not really deep into the 15s, but I still have the mechanical fan on it. It's still full weight, which I'm not really pulling much out of it. Probably going to put a K member in it and control arms, but other than that, everything is pretty much going to be the same. It's getting a T5 and that's going to be a little lighter. If I can put an aluminum drive shaft in it, I will. If I can find one that fits it. For now, I'm trying to keep it budget. And then the intake. I blanked out, sorry, but got the Action Plus intake somewhere around here. So that's going to be a little bit of weight off the engine, and then, you know, whatever that picks up because of flow, letting more air in. So it went a 1598 with a stock motor in it with exhaust and a carburetor. And we still have stuff that I'm doing. Oh, and factory gear. Has no gear in it. Probably like a 273. By the time you put the 28 on it, you know, that takes away from that gearing. Now, that 28, I got short tires sitting. I actually just put them in the shed. They were outside. I could have grabbed those, threw them on the back, saw what it did. Would have been a little harder to get it to go because, you know, they're not a slick. It's not a sticky tire or drag radial. I was going to try to spin it, but I could have done stuff with like tire pressure to make the rear lock and things like that. But I wanted to see if it would do it with the 28s for the reason of seeing it go a 15 with no gear in it, with the worst circumstances, because I know it's going to go faster with a shorter tire if it hooks. Adding gear to that car, it's going to wake up. I've done it before. I picked up 2 seconds by putting a rear in a car. Fairmont, 243 gears to a 410. It was automatic. Had a little shift kit in it. It went from a 1630 to a 14.1 or 14.0. I think I talked about that car in a past video. So, I mean, I'm already faster than that car, probably because I have a little bit more gear. Because I don't think this car has 243s in it. It might. I don't know. Because this one, I am shifting it in the second, where the other car, it was close. I could almost make the quarter mile in first gear. Like, I went through hitting the rev limiter, like, bah, 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 trying to go through them first. This, I have to shift it in the second. There's no way it's reaching the quarter. That's from what I remember, at least. That little bit, 243 to 273, I mean, that might be the difference between the 1630 and the 1590, I guess. But, I can't remember what size tires I had on that other Fairmont. I can't remember if I had the short ones on it still, or if I put, because I remember I put 28s on it. So it's probably on a 28-inch drag radial or slick like this. So, I'm just trying to base it where they're even as possible for comparison, to show you guys that this car, if I were to put gear in it, it's going 14s all day, if not in the 13s. I honestly think it would go in the 13s. I think it would jump right into the 13s with gear in it. Going from a 273 to a 410, probably go 13. And that's with the stock converter, stock intake. That's not touching anything but just putting gear. That's it. Gear. Nothing else. That being said, I would like to put 430s in it with the stick. Now, putting the stick in it, that is going to wake it up. I think the gear, regardless, like I said, we get it in the 13s. If I put 430s in it with the C4, the thing's going to be just, it's, down the highway, it's going to suck. But it's got a tight converter because it's a factory converter. So it's still not going to 60 well. If I'm lucky, it'll go like a 2.0 60 foot. Now, with the stick in it, that should get down to like a 1.6 60 foot. So I think it's capable, like I said, like a 1390, maybe a little faster, 1370 around there, by putting gear in it. We'll go with the 1390 though. So that's still automatic, still how it sits, like I just told you, from our 1590. Put the rear in it, 1390. I put the stick in it. We go from, let's say, a 2.0 60 foot down to a 1.6. So that's 4/10 in the 60 foot. That's 8/10 up top. So that's a 13.1 car now. Honestly, I think it would actually go faster than that. It's going to gain mile an hour going to the stick because it's less horsepower being robbed from that converter and all that automatic bull crap. So you're talking probably a couple mile an hour on top of it. So that's a 12-second car. And we still haven't touched the engine. I got long tubes for it, which actually has a long tube on it now, so that's not going to help it. But I got Mac long tubes in a Pro chamber. that exhaust isn't going to do a thing. But I am going to put full exhaust on it all the way out the back. It's going to actually be heavier exhaust. Now, the intake swap, that's going to be 2 to 3 tenths, most likely. I can't see that factory 4-barrel intake being that great. And it's probably going to be about a 20-pound difference. I'll weigh it when I pull it off, but them cast iron intakes I know are pretty heavy. So it's going to be 10 to 20 pounds at least off the front nose of the car. So that intakes, like I said, 2 to 3 tenths. So if we went a 1290, 1280, put the intake on it, it's a 1250 car. And it's stock head, stock cam. It's not touching anything in the motor. Every time I figure it out, no matter how I look at it, there's a 12-second car just waiting to be unfolded out of this thing. 12s isn't fast. It's not flying. Not in today's world, 2024. If you were to go back and this is everything that's on the car is 1980s. The car's in 79. I thought it was a 78, but 79. The engine's a 68. The carburetor's the only thing they didn't have back then, but a Holley 750 would be just as good as what's on it. That intake was back in the 80s, the Action Plus that I have. So it's like all the stuff that's basically going on in this car was back then. The exhaust is a little newer, 90s probably, Mac exhaust. So really, you go back 30 years ago, go back in the 90s, the 80s, and this wagon pulls up next to you, you would not expect it to go 13s. Or 12s. I should say 12s. I remember my dad's in the 90s going 15s, and people thought that was quick. They were like, man, that thing's fast. You know, racing Corvettes with it and keeping up with them. Like looking over at a Corvette in the passenger seat, and I'm in a station wagon with my dad. And the Corvette was relatively new at the time. 80s, 90s, only a couple years old. Newer than the Fairmont, but, a couple years old in the 90s, maybe. They were a doggy year Corvette, but it's still, you got a station wagon keeping up with a Corvette. Back then, a Corvette, the name was, when I was a kid, you wanted a Corvette. Now they're whatever, back then they were almost like a status sports car back then. Ford only had the Mustang, the GT40 wasn't, that was in the 60s, it wasn't out, because this is before they came back out with it. So, stuff like that, the older guys will remember what I'm talking about. If you're 30 on up, you know what I'm talking about. If you're under 30, then I can't help you. But, so put yourself back in that time where you got a little station wagon and it's relatively stock. You pull up next to it. This thing sounds like garbage idle. It's blump, 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 blump. It doesn't have a nice sound to it at all. It sounds like trash, to be honest. I hate it. That being said, I might put a cam in it to see what it does, if I can find something. I'd actually like to try a B cam in this engine. I'm not a fan of B cams, but I think in this, a B cam actually might work relatively well because of the head that's on it. I'm not saying it's going to set the world on fire with a B cam, but I think it'll help it out 2 or 3 tenths maybe, to be honest, which I've never seen a B cam help out that much in a 5.0 car. I've seen them pick up a tenth. Every car I've seen, they go 12s. Stock cam can do that. Stock roller cam. But I have retrofit lifters. somewhere around here. My dad was in here and moved stuff around a little bit because he was doing work and didn't want to make them dirty. Oh, right here. Actually, right in front of my face. But, they're PBM, retrofit hydraulic roller lifters. So, I got those, and I got a set of Crane Gold 1.6 rockers, I believe. Yep. Crane Gold 1.6 roller rockers. The rockers I probably won't end up using with those heads. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. But the retrofit lifters I'll use. Depends what I can find, though. If I can find a cam, you know, something cheap. I'd like to put something cheap in it. I'm not trying to spend a bunch of money. So if I can find an old B cam, you know, 90s, 2000s money deal, 50 to 100 bucks. Not 300 because it's a error correct cam. Or an E cam, F cam, one of them alphabet bullcrap cams. I would throw that in. Alphabet cams, their lobe separation angle is a little bit more, a little bit better than Trick Flow. The Trick Flow, I think, is like a 114, the stage 1. A buddy of mine actually has one, and, well, he got it from me, and then I could probably get it back, but I'm not a fan of that cam. Had it in a Mustang, my white Mustang, a couple of years ago. It just didn't do nothing for me. It was like, why do you even bother putting a cam in the car? But, I mean, I guess anything's better than what's in it. But I just want to, if I'm going to do the work, I want something that's going to be a little bit worth it, you know. If I could find, like, a Lunati, like, around 512 lift, that would be ideal. I think I would go really well in this. Probably need valve springs, which with these heads, the more lift I add, they're pressed in the stud. So I don't know if I could figure out a way to make a stud conversion without pulling the heads off, because I don't mind tapping the heads, but I don't feel like grinding the pedestals down and all that. So if I could find a way to get a screw and stud to go in there and maybe red thread lock it. If I could find like a hardened straight stud that doesn't have the little tulip with the, you know, that you use a wrench to tighten it down with. Might be a crappy design doing it that way. I'm kind of weak, but I really don't feel like pulling the heads off. If I'm going to do that, I got short blocks sitting here that I can put together, which is what I would prefer to do. That was my original plan. I was going to use one of these short blocks, do a little setup, which I might still do on the side, but I think right now I'm just going to have fun with this, how it is. Pull the motor out. I got to fix the strut towers. I'll do that while it's out. If I can slip a cam in it, maybe do that. But I'd really like to see what it goes, how it sits. Without no cam, nothing, just to show you guys that it'll go 12s. And how deep it'll go, I don't know. Like I said, I think I can get a 1250, 1230. Might try to shoot for the 11s. It's going to be hard to do with that car because that car, it's going to block some air. You know, the faster you go, the harder that square stuff becomes to push the air. So going to try to see what it'll go. I would like to try for 11s with it, but I don't know if it has that in it, just because what is there with the cam and stuff in it. Maybe if I wanted to pull the heads off, yeah, definitely do it. But I think it's 1230 capable, so that's probably going to be the number I stick to, 1230. So that's what we're going to shoot for you guys. I'm going to try for 11s, but I just don't know if that car will do it with what it has. I think it's going to be really hard. I think I'm going to need suspension under it, which I do have some stuff laying around, and I will try to put some stuff in it. But this car is more of a fun car, driver, put the family in it daily. You know, I'm going to drive this thing to work 75 miles each way, so it's more so a daily. Like, I want the AC still in it. It's got power steering on it, which I don't mind if I get rid of that. You know, I'll put manual in it. I don't mind dailying manual steering. That don't bother me. But I'd like to put like an Explorer center section in it. Usually I go with a spool, but if I get caught in the rain, I don't feel like the car's spinning around on me. You know, I'll be putting tires on and off of it to race it. I'll probably buy another set of back wheels to take it to the track, run it on them, and then use what I got to drive on. That's pretty much it, guys. The plan is from here on out, went to 1590. Like to do an electric fan on it, see what that does. I might change the intake, see what it does with the automatic, to see how much it picks up with the auto in it. Just because I have it. All I need is gaskets. Get some stock gaskets. I might even have them. There's actually one hanging on the wall right there, a factory gasket. Doesn't look like it's compressed either, so that's probably a new factory gasket. But I'll look around, see if I got some other ones. If I got a set of gaskets, maybe I'll put the intake on it. Maybe try that 600 carburetor first and then put the intake on it and see, you know, what happens with that. Go back and forth. Try a couple different things. Just lost my balance and went down. Smacked my face right on the table. The exhaust, that's going to go on the car probably after I fix the strut towers. That's my thinking, at least. I'm trying to think. So, I apologize for all the long pauses. I'm tired. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I still got to get in the house and do stuff too, so. But I think that's the plan for now. Get that where it's good. I'd like to put a shift light in it, or a tack, or I got a little shift light that's digital. It tells me the RPM in it. I'd like to get that hooked up, so that way I know what I'm actually shifting at. Because right now I'm shifting by feel and ear. So once I get that in the car, it's going to make it a little bit more consistent with the driving. You know, it's little stuff that makes a big difference. So I think I might be able to get it to go like a 1550, maybe, with the fan, the intake. See what other little things I can maybe do to it. I mean, right now, when I'm leaving with it, I'm yanking the wheel. I'm pulling in the street crooked, putting it up on the foot brake, and then when I'm mashing the gas, I'm jerking the wheel to get the rear to dig in, and that's how I'm leaving with the car. So probably jerking that wheel and then steering the wheel back for correction is probably robbing a little bit of power, but it's making the car hook. So, because you got to think, whenever you're hitting that wheel, that power steering pump's pumping fluid through it. It's, you know, so that's going to rob a little bit there. So if I get the car where I can leave straight, that might even help it out a little bit in the 60 foot. If it hooks, you know. So we got some stuff to try. Been babbling on for about 30 minutes. So I think this video is quite long enough for you guys to get the point. And hopefully you guys get to see some stuff. You know, you got to see the car getting the 15s with not even really touching anything except the carburetor and the distributor. and a spacer, I guess, if you want to be real, you know, real, what's the word I'm looking for? Petty. If you want to be real petty, I touched the carburetor, the distributor, and a spacer. That's what I did. That's it. I haven't even put plugs or wires on it yet, which I probably don't need them, but I haven't put a cap rotor, I haven't put a fuel filter in it, nothing. So, and the car sat for a year, so probably could have used all that stuff, but and it's on 87 octane, don't have no 93 or nothing in it. Oh, and I put a taller tire on it. So, there you guys have it. Stupid little things. We got what, 9/10 out of the car from when we picked it up to now, almost a full second. So, still got a lot more left. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed and you'd like to subscribe, got more coming for you guys. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys later.